People can get over a lot. People can look over and look past a lot. But if you have an incident like this at your church, you will be critiqued every way, upside, out, inside and out, up, down, left and right. Somebody's going to find something wrong somewhere. The best thing you can do is prepare yourself. And we're going to talk about some of that too. Is what do you do not only before and during the incident, but what do you do afterwards? Go ahead, Jacob. What are some motivational factors behind the attack? That actually goes through about, I think it gives us here in just a second, maybe the next slide, but it's here in the next few, 3 different incidents that have occurred recently church-wide as far as just why incidents occur. And a lot of times we think of, well, an active shooter incident or a shooting at a church is because just people are mean and they come in and, here lately, what's the latest one in Charleston was because, the white kid didn't like black folks and he went in and shot everybody, right? Just the gist of it, that's what it is. But that's not always the case. And something that people don't think about, and the first one they list here is domestic violence. If you have a lady at your church, her and her husband have been having some domestic violence issues, and she goes to your church, where does he know she's at on Sunday morning? If she's taking out a 50B and he can't have contact, he can't go to her place of employment, she may have changed jobs, but where is she most likely going to be on Sunday morning? And who's she most likely going to have with her? His youngins. So just keep that in mind. And what this lady is giving you guys in the next session is just as important, if not more so, than what we're going over here. Evil intent, hate, various biases, mental illness. Guys, we've had all of these, not necessarily in churches here in the county, but issues with all 4 of these here in the county on a daily basis. When you talk about mental illness, I think I don't have the latest number, but we were looking at when people go in for involuntary commitments, when they're having some issues, the sheriff's office is responsible for transporting them from the hospital to CRC or different places like that. And I think for us, over the last 800 mental illness transports that we did last year. So I'm telling you, it is a growing issue, and the more medicine the doctors put people on, the worse it's going to get, in my personal opinion. But those are just a few of the things that the presentation tonight talks about. There again, this slide and the next 2 are just a few of what has happened here recently. Like I said, we'll provide you guys with these websites, or with this presentation, and all of the websites are at the bottom if you want to go through and read some more about them. But you guys know that this was the young man from Charleston who went in, and I think the ages there were from 16 to 87 as far as the age range of people that he killed. But if you don't think it can happen here, he was caught in Shelby, hour away. This happened in Charleston. He might have, who knows, he might have come through Union County. So it can happen here. The latest one, I think we were just talking about it, actually I was talking with our pastor about it Sunday. The one in, was it Pennsylvania last weekend? And it was, and I'm going to tell you now, we talk about this a lot, and you guys may not at your church, but it's been, how many of you have people who sit in the same spot every Sunday? Right? All right. How many of you have people who sing in the choir, but before they go to the choir, they take their Bible, and this is my seat, and they set their Bible in that seat, then they go sing in the choir, and they expect that seat when they get back, right? Honest to goodness, look it up. This is what happened in Pennsylvania. A guy came in, had some mental issues going on. Some folks had set their Bibles down, or their stuff down on one pew or seat, however the church was set up. They go to sing in the choir. One of the guys who is like an usher who's welcoming these guys in and out goes up and taps this guy on the shoulder and says, hey, somebody was saving this seat. The guy jumps up, starts cussing at him, walks outside, grabs his pistol, walks back in, shoots him, I think 2 or 3 times, kills him in the middle of the church. It happened a week ago in Pennsylvania. So there's tons of different stuff out there. Read some of these, Googling. We talked about domestic violence. This gentleman here, was in Baton Rouge. He abducted his wife and children, wound up killing his wife. The children were found safe, but he shot 5 at the church. 4 of them died before he abducted his wife, and he later shot and killed there. But he knew where she was going to be. Sunday morning, she was at church, her and all of their kids. And the next one. This guy was a janitor. Apparently, he was at a 30,000 member World Changers Church in Atlanta. 52 years old, maintenance worker. He walked into the sanctuary and fatally shot a church volunteer. He said Mr. Palmer worked in the facilities department at the church. And it doesn't go into a lot of detail about it, but upset employee goes in and shoots it out with another fellow at church there again, who knows over what. All right, so that's kind of giving you a background of kind of why we're here. And I will go ahead and tell you that I hope it is not in my lifetime, but it's not if it will happen in Union County, it's just when. Because we are growing by leaps and bounds. And I think, there again, what are we, top 5 now, counties in the state as far as growth? So, and the bypass coming in, that's just going to escalate things there too. But anyway, we're just, the rise in crime rate that we see across the county, with our agency, it's amazing if you could actually sit down and look at the stats. These are a couple of the sheriffs. Like I said, everybody in the state of North Carolina is getting this same presentation, which is kind of why we have kind of put off giving it. But these are Sheriff Alan Neville out of Cleveland County and Sheriff Hubert Perkins out of Polk County made these 2 statements. It says, together through awareness, education, and action, we can attempt to minimize vulnerabilities and try to ensure the protection of your place of worship and its congregants. And then a place of worship should be a place of peace and safe haven of worshiping away from conflicts of the world. There again, we're going to try. Nobody is saying that, and I say this all the time. I wish I could give you the booklet on how to make your church safe, and if you followed it, it's kind of like putting one of those beds or a couch or something together you get from IKEA. It's really complicated to follow those directions, but if you get it together, it's pretty decent when you get done with it. But if you don't know what you're going to wind up with. So all I can say is we're going to give you some tools for your toolbox. Whether you use them is up to you. All right, the security guide. There again, the purpose of it is to provide direction. It is not a set in stone, you've got to do A, B, C, and D. It is just mainly, it's a guide, it's a tool. It discusses actions that can be taken before, during, and after an incident. And there are some really, you guys can take this as far as you want, but there are some really, really simple steps that you can do to make your church safer. If you're not doing them now, like I said, we'll talk you through that. One of the things that I highly recommend, if you want something specific, this presentation is going to be really generic because it's for churches statewide. It's not denominational. It's for everybody. If you want something specific to your church, give us a call. We'll be glad to come in and look at it. Just tell you what we see, a different set of eyes. Because you go into the same place, it's kind of like this. If you go home tonight and the power's not on and you can't see to get in the front door, can you figure out how to get somewhere, to get a candle or a flashlight? You know your house well enough to be able to get around it, right? If I came to your house tonight and the lights were off and I had to go in your house and find something, do you think I could do it? Probably not. So I say that to, if you ever have an incident at your church and you call 911, if you're in the county, we're coming, period. There is no question. We're coming, we're going to do our best to get to you as quickly as we can. One thing that us coming to your church allows us to do is see it before it happens. It's all about preparation. Go ahead, Jed, just that next one. Planning and oversight. Now, there are a few folks in here that I'd say you may need to get involved. No offense, I love you like a fat kid loves cake, sir. But y'all can leave the lawyers out. But no, I'm just kidding. I had to throw that in there when I was going over this. I said, I'm going to get it somehow. Because I know I'm going to get it back, right? But some folks that you need to be involved, and think about your congregation. And how well do you know your congregation? How many of you know the folks that go to your church? How well do you know their profession? If somebody falls and breaks their legs, does anybody have a doctor at the church? Yep. How many you got?
And 2 EMS.
And 2 EMS. All right, here's the next question, and this is something really simple. All right, and I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but this is something to think about. If something were to happen, if we were at your church right now, and something happened, all right, you call 911. Who knows the street address for your church? Show of hands, anybody doesn't? All right, just something to think about. And who's going to be calling 911 from your church if something happens? All right? Does everybody know it? Not everybody knows where the First Baptist Church on First Street, is at. So, some folks to get involved, and I kind of got off on a little tangent there, but some folks that you want to get involved in your plan. One, pastoral staff, elders, deacons, key congregational members who are law enforcement, EMS, fire, military, there again throws in the lawyers, counselors, and doctors. How many of you have law enforcement officers that go to your church? Get them involved. A lot of them don't want to be, they want to leave their work at work, but I can promise you that most of them are probably carrying a firearm at your church on Sunday morning. I do. So that's something that you'll want to know. What is our ultimate goal for this committee, for the folks that are looking out for our church? They want to provide a forum for developing, implementing, and continually refining and planning a process. Something that I cannot stress enough. If you get on the bandwagon and you go 100 miles an hour for the next 6 months and you have the ultimate plan for everything, every incident that could possibly happen at your church, there is nothing that you can't handle, period. Hands down, you're the best at it, you're the best it's ever going to be. After that 6 months, after another 6 months, after a year, after 2 years, how many times have you gone back and looked at that plan again? How many times have Sunday school classes changed? How many times have you added on to your church? How many times have people left your church and new members have come? When you look at this plan, it is something that is continually being developed and grown and changed, and it's kind of alive, and you've got to treat it as such. And if you don't water it and you don't prune it and you don't work on it regularly, it's going to fade out and die, and then it's going to be left up to somebody else to start a new one. The next, well, there's like 40-something slides in here, and I'm going to have to hurry. There are a ton of slides talking about prevention. There are about 4 slides that talk about during the incident, and about 4 slides that talk about after the incident, and those 8 are really what we're going to focus on, because a lot of this is redundant. But objectively, you want to complete a security risk assessment for your facilities, look at your policy and procedures, business practices, your operations. Let me ask you this, and in looking through this program, there's points that I could interject at several different areas through this presentation, but one of the key ones, and when we do this at our church, how many of you, when you take up your offering on Sunday morning, and I'm not asking for, don't ask for a show, I'm not asking for a show of hands, but if you have more than $1,000 in your offering plates on a Sunday morning, who takes that to the bank? Who takes, when that offering is taken up, where does it go from the time it's taken up to the time it goes to the bank. Because I can promise you, there have been people killed in Monroe and Union County for less than $100. And if you think they won't come in your church and rob you, you are blind as bat. And there again, I wish I could tell you what to do, and if you did X, Y, and Z, then it would prevent it. But that's what this is about. Is completing those security risks to see what you can do better. You know, where is that locked up? I'll just tell you what we do when we get done taking up the offering at our church. I promise you, I got my pistol on me at all times. This one right here. Sheriff says I can take it anywhere in the state of North Carolina, and I do. Myself and another, actually, John, did he go?
I think he went to
John, he'll be in here in the next session. He and I go put it in, we don't count it, we don't do anything with it, but just take it out of the pot, throw it in a bag, lock it up, put it in the safe. But I can promise you, if somebody comes in there to get it between the time we take it up to the time it goes in that safe, we're going to have to have a word of prayer. All right? But those are some things that you want to look